Second straight week that Alabama barely wins. They barely beat Tennessee the week before, and then they played a good LSU team here who's had a couple close losses this year. They defeat the LSU Tigers. Is Alabama proving week in, week out yes, the toughest conference to play in all of college football? That they are more deserving of that number 2 ranking in the BCS than Texas? We're going to talk about BCS in a little bit, but
I mean, we can have this debate to amuse ourselves if we want, but to be honest, it doesn't matter because Florida and Alabama are going to play each other, and the winner there is going to play for the national title. I think it's apples and oranges when you're comparing Alabama and Texas. I mean, they're both very good teams. They've both been playing very well the past couple weeks and they beat some quality opponents, but it's too hard to tell. I'm not willing to pick between them.
David, would you answer my question for me, please?
I think Scott's right in the fact that it doesn't matter, but if I had to pick, it would definitely be Alabama. I think they have great weapons in Mark Ingram and Julio Jones, and I think they've shown that they can beat quality opponents, even though I'm not so sure LSU's as quality of an opponent as people make them out to be. I think they'll show that later on in the season, especially against Florida.
Well, let's take a look at those BCS standings we were mentioning earlier. In the bye, Texas had superseded Alabama for that number 2 slot. When Alabama didn't play, Texas did have a game. Of course, it's reverted back now. Both are playing every week. TCU there at number 4. Doomsday scenario lurking slightly if one of those 2 teams, or one of those 3 teams at the top slip up. Then Boise State at number 6, Georgia Tech at number 7, LSU number 8, USC at number 9. They're not statistically tied with LSU. That would be remarkable. And number 10, Iowa, despite their loss to Northwestern. Things seem to be on the same track they were, even despite Alabama, not winning convincingly at home against LSU. Of course, one other game to note this past weekend, as you mentioned, in the last 3 years now, Notre Dame has lost twice to Navy. And I guess we'll start with you, David, this time. Charlie Weiss's tush has to be warming up a little bit. I mean, another loss to Navy? That hasn't happened. One class of guys at Notre Dame has not lost twice to Navy in a very, very, very long time.
Well, I think Charlie Weiss's tush is more than just a little warm. I think he's putting in job applications in the NFL to be an offensive coordinator next year. And, looking at the Lions, maybe they should take a look at him after Matthew Stafford's 5 picks this weekend.
I don't know what I could stand more. The Lions with I can't even imagine the Lions with Charlie Weiss got. But is Jimmy Clausen's Heisman hopes finally done at this point in the season? No, but the state of Notre Dame is looking almost as bad as Michigan.
Well, no, I mean Notre Dame's still probably 7-3 right now. They've lost to USC. Maybe the Michigan loss doesn't look quite as good right now, and they lost to Navy. That's not a good loss. But, you can forgive it. They have Pitt coming up this week. That's going to be a very interesting game against a good Pitt team. If they lose that one, Charlie was in a lot of trouble. If they win that one, I still think he's okay.
But it does speak volumes when your head coach, is consistently subject to will he be fired rumors.
It's Notre Dame. If you go 9-3, you're going to get those rumors though. Every year.
Well, but I would argue that when the alumni start to buy billboards say whatever $1 million internship needs to end, that kind of crosses a line into you're in trouble land. Well, we need to take a commercial break, but coming back on the other side, we will revisit Michigan football once more. Welcome back to Varsity Blues. Alex Prasad, David Now, Scott Wagner, back to Michigan football. Before we talk as angry fans about what needs to happen or what should happen in light of especially the last 2 weeks here, let's take a look at what Rich Rodriguez said when questioned about what he would say to disappointed and upset Michigan football fans.
Yeah, what do you want me to say? I mean, I feel their frustration, and we have it as well. It's a process we're going through. I'm sure our fans, they've been outstanding. I'm sure they're frustrated, and we're frustrated, but we're not going to give up on it. We're going to keep working. Our kids will keep working. And yeah, I think we're in a process, and I think the frustrating part is that everybody wants it right now, and nobody more so than the players and the coaches. I don't have a magic wand and, can't fix this right now. I said it a bunch of times. Some of our problems are going to take a little more longer to fix than than anybody wants. But we're going to fix them. Just give us time. It's not going to happen.
Well, lucky for Rich Rodriguez, I have a magic wand, and there you go. Everything's right with Michigan football. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, we discussed last week whether or not this Purdue game was program defining, at least for the foreseeable future. I hope the answer is no to that question. But Scott, you're hearing people talk about Rich Rodriguez in obviously certainly a much more negative light, but also, again, should Rich Rodriguez be fired is coming up. I mean, can we put this to bed once and for all? 2 years would be completely unprecedented in college football.
Yeah, 2 years isn't enough. It is basically unprecedented, even with the Notre Dame fans I was talking about earlier. But it just doesn't make sense because he's taken bad teams before, and in the second year he's done remarkably well. He's taking a good team, given it might not be as good as Michigan teams in the past, but he's still taking pretty good talent. And how can you be in the position where you need to win against two ranked teams just to make it into a bowl game? I mean, I understand there's new system to be put in place, but I don't understand how can they be this bad in his second year as head coach.
Does it make sense to you, David?
It really just doesn't. And I think that, Rich Rodriguez, he's had time to put a system in place, and he has type of players he wants, but I don't think he quite has the talent that he wants. And I think that's been the biggest issue. And yeah, there's been bumps along the road. I think this team's better than the 5-5 that they showed, but I still think that there's some kinks that need to be worked out. And I think eventually with time, it'll all pass and Michigan football will be back to being Michigan football, but it's taken a little longer than people would like.
Yeah, well, any pause in the gravy train that has been Michigan football and all the awards and prestige that comes with it, of course, will not be seen well. And there's certainly a very good argument, at least the 3-9 season, to be made that the cupboard really was bare when he came in. A lot of people left. There was a lot of people that left due to this friction of a transition, which is to be expected. I don't think it's fair to say that Ryan Mallett would have stayed if Rich Rodriguez, pleaded him more. Justin Bourne would have stayed. I don't know if he even wanted those guys to stay, especially with the attitude that they had. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, let's move forward. Rich Rodriguez isn't thinking about anything but what's coming up. Next week, doesn't think about the past, he's only thinking about the future. So let's only think about the future as well. Michigan's going to travel to Madison, a great college town this weekend, take on the Wisconsin Badgers. It's a must-win. Quite honestly, Michigan wants to make a bowl. Some may argue this was the best shot to do it. And I'll start with you, Scott. Is this Michigan's best shot to qualify for a bowl? Of course, Michigan needs 6 wins. They have 5 right now, 2 games left. Or do you like Michigan's chances better in the Ohio State game?
That's a trick question, right? It's hard to like their chances in either of them going into, as it stands now. I think they're more likely to beat Wisconsin than Ohio State, but I don't know how they're going to beat Wisconsin. Look, Wisconsin beat Purdue 37-0 2 weeks ago. So it's nothing
right.
bad.
Of course, but then they barely beat Indiana 31-28 just recently. David, which game do you think Michigan has a better chance to win?
I think they have a slightly better chance to win at Wisconsin, but you've seen them on the road. They haven't shown up to play, quite frankly. And when they have, they've blown it at the end, or they've gotten some favorable turnovers, as they did Iowa.
All right, well, we're running out of time here on Varsity Blue. No predictions necessary. Let's just hope things go well. We'll see you next week, where hopefully we'll be talking about a bowl-eligible Michigan football team. Wave your magic wands, people.